Hello and welcome to the Oregonian Sports Podcast. It's been a couple of weeks. I'm Bill Oram, sports columnist at the Oregonian, joined, as always, by Brenna Greene. Brenna, a few weeks ago or a couple months ago, you were on vacation in parts unknown, and now I'm just back from vacation from parts unknown. Just kidding. I was in my house, but I'm back now, so... But, yeah, nothing too exciting for me, but... I did want to, Brenna, check in with you because even though it hasn't been vacation, you have been out and about. You were on the mean streets of Las Vegas for a little bit, where a lot was happening of local interest. The Portland Trailblazers are wrapping up Summer League now. Oregon State had its, what we would traditionally call a media day, but in this instance was more like a Monte Carlo night, like throw the dice with Trent Bray and Steven Jackson.
Not exactly, but okay.
Sort of along those lines.
There was no gambling involved at that, unfortunately. Yeah.
Well, then that just seems like a miss to me. Like, why would you have a Pac-12 after dark type event to herald the new period of the Pac-12 with an open bar, by the way, for working media, which is always a bit of a curious one, and no gambling.
I would like to say I did not partake in the open bar until I finished all of my interviews. So there you go, job.
But I would have liked to have conducted interviews, and I was again not able to go in this instance. I was at Cub Scout camp, but I would want to conduct interviews over the craps table, over the blackjack table. I want to see how the players that Oregon State and Washington State brought, assuming they were all old enough to gamble, which of course they were. I want to see how they react to those pressure-packed situations where you're like, do I hit this soft 17? That's what I would have liked to have seen. So I think that was a miss by the Pac-12 and new commissioner Teresa Gould. Teresa, if you're listening next year, gambling.
This is not the turn I expected this pod to take at the beginning, but I'm thoroughly entertained by it. So there's that.
So let's start off the strip at the Thomas and Mack Center, where the NBA Summer League is being held.
Mm-hmm.
The Trailblazers, of course, the story of Summer League has been the arrival and debut of Donovan Clingan, and a handful of the other young Blazers who were rookies last year are playing. Rayon Rupert, Chris Murray. The first question, Brenna, is what was it like being around Donovan Clingan and seeing him up close for the first time? In a Trailblazers uniform? What did you make of his Summer League debut?
Yeah.
I would love to hear how much stock you put in Summer League basketball at all. But nonetheless, I think there are occasional lessons to be learned. What have you seen?
I think the thing that I noted the most was just his general effort and whatever you'd want to insert there, was pretty high. You're really gonna say that right now?
We've got Kelly Doyle editing this podcast. She's gonna beep out the bad words.
What up, Kelly? So anyways, yeah, like for that first game offensively, extremely difficult. Was not a pretty game for him. And he was not thrilled. Even post game, he was not in a because defensively he had a very good game. I mean, he had 5 blocks and probably had 5 other shots that he just straight up altered that aren't blocks, but people either went in the paint and said, oh no, I ain't going there, or people had to work around him and then got bad shots. So defensively he had a very good night, but offensively, yeah, it was not there for him that night. And at one point he came off the court and I could see him visibly very frustrated. And then
did Kelly Doyle need to beep some of his words too?
Yes, I think so. Yes. Now, to be fair, I was on the other end. I wasn't on the end of the Blazers that the Blazers were sitting at, so I couldn't tell you exactly. But yeah, I think that'd be safe to say. And yeah, he did post game. When he did post game, it was not a happy dude. Post game, he didn't really have a lot of he didn't have a lot of nice things to say about himself. But I think that he and like just generally watching him in the games that I watch of him in summer league so far, like he has a very he really genuinely cares a lot, and that is obvious with the amount of effort he's putting out there and also with the amount of will he has out there. And like he got murdered by Adam Bona, and the next possession absolutely throttled it over Bona. So like he's not someone that's just like, oh, it's a summer league game, I don't care. He definitely like had a lot of passion for what he was doing out there. So I will give him that, and I respect that more than any stat line in summer league, because summer league is summer league. Like you said, you can't like trying to take away things from it is difficult, but what I can take away is the fact that if somebody cares at that level the way that he cared, like that is a good omen for the season for the Blazers, because that means that he's going to really work hard for them. So that would like be my number one takeaway about Donovan Clingan. It's not really about the stats for me. It's about what I saw from the body language and things like that.
Yeah,
Have you watched any games?
I've watched as much as I can.
Yeah.
Or care to. Or can handle, I guess. No, I mean, I've been curious about Clingan as well, and I think the thing that jumps out to me about him, and I think is a good measure of summer league, is just impact. When he's on the floor, he's making an impact on every possession, especially defensively.
Yes.
You're seeing guys not want to attack the rim. You're seeing him close out. I mean, he blocked a 3-pointer at the end of the game 2 nights ago to help steal that win. He's all over the place defensively, and I recognize offense is half the game, but like I don't care at this point what's happening offensively. He has G League guards trying to get him the ball.
Exactly.
He's not, he's playing with guys he's never played with before. The fact that he is taking threes now, and he's moving, that he's comfortable enough like drifting out to that 3-point line. I'm not worried about whether the shot is falling at this point. Like, you want him to keep working on that and keep developing it. He's 20 years old, and so I think with him the tools are there, and the fact that he's already a defensive difference maker, which we knew, right? That's why the Blazers drafted him. But you can see that from summer league being transferable to the regular season right away. It's not to say that he should be supplanting DeAndre Ayton on day one, and that he is automatically has it all figured out. There's still things he's gonna have to learn physically. He's gonna have to mature, but the skills and the tools defensively are there. And I think that just the amount of havoc he creates defensively that you're seeing in summer league sort of confirms or affirms why the Blazers were so excited to get him. And that's, I mean, we've been talking, not you and I specifically, but people around the Blazers, people who cover the Blazers, you and I sometimes, have been talking about the Blazers just dreadful defense for years. And this has been
this is a trademark from them. Yes.
And it's been, a lot of it has had to do with having guards who don't play a lot of defense, and then putting a lot of pressure on the bigs behind them to defend the rim, and you didn't have great rim protectors. That was not exactly Yusuf Nurkic's calling card. So this is, I think, a really promising step for the Blazers long term about kind of their identity and their their on court character, to have a defensive difference maker in the middle for the long haul in Clingan. And I think that you've seen it. I think that if you're a Blazer fan who's had to kind of peek between your fingers to watch these games the last few years, and struggled watching other teams score 140 points a night, watching Donovan Clingan go out there and mop everything up, grabbing 11 rebounds, blocking 5-6 shots a night. I think that's something you can be excited for going forward. And there haven't been a ton of things that Blazer fans have been excited for. So this is, again, I don't think Donovan Clingan is necessarily he's a guy who could make an all-star game or become an eventual all-star caliber player. I think that is there, but he's not the guy that you're pinning the hopes of the franchise on.
No.
But if you say in 5 years the Blazers are a top 3 team in the West, you expect that he's the center of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my personal favorite thing about watching Donovan Clingan play defense was watching people literally dribble into the key, see him, and back out. That happened multiple times.
Yeah.
Especially in that second game against the 76ers. where you'd watch a guard dribble in and go, oh, no, I'm good. And just get out of there. And yeah, like I talked about this in my, in one of my, rap packages that I sent back, but my favorite play that he had, I didn't get to watch the third game because I was in the Aeropuerto in Las Vegas. But like my favorite thing that I watched in Summer League, my favorite play of his was the inbounds against the 76ers, where he was able to cause that 5-second violation that turned the ball over and basically ultimately sealed the game for the Blazers. So, I mean, that is something that you can't teach. You either have that amount of effort or you don't. I mean, yes,
you're either 7'2" or you aren't. Yes,
but also there are plenty of 7'2" people who would not care, who would get on that ball and be like, yeah, whatever. I can think of a few off the top of my head that would not be as active as he was and care as much as he did, and that was really obvious. So that was a moment that showed his basketball IQ, but also I thought showed who he is as a basketball player on the court. And that's something that was a real, like, okay, all right, I see you moment for me, where I was like, all right, you've proved what I need you to prove to me. So
how do you see, Brenna, the Blazers navigating their current center rotation in the fall if it stays the same? We saw DeAndre Ayton show up at Summer League. He has been nothing but given the appearance of being supportive of Donovan Clingan.
Yeah.
And this is the nature of the NBA. Teams are always looking for your replacement. There's very few players in the NBA who, GMs and coaches aren't trying to find somebody who can take their jobs. You want to get better at every position. So, nature of the league. What have you made sort of the DeAndre Ayton of it all? Robert Williams III is still in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see this actually playing out?
I mean, if I were the Blazers, I would try to trade Robert Williams right now, but I also understand the thought process of, well, we need him to play for us a little bit so that we can up his stock to get better return. Because I do think Robert is the one that's going over DA right now. And perhaps a DA. I mean, he's, outwardly at the very least handled this extremely well. So respect to him on that, because some players. I mean, he could have just not
said anything.
He could have not said anything, and nobody would fault him right now. But instead, he's been really, really vocal and really, really supportive. So shout out to him for that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, they got a situation for sure. I mean, the obvious thing is to try to trade Time Lord, but do you want to give Time Lord more minutes so that you can get better return on him? That's what they're weighing right now. I would imagine that is what that front office is weighing right now. What do you think?
Well, I think that Robert Williams needs to show that he's healthy, and so once they get to that point, but I don't know how far down the road you have to get, like how deep into the regular season you have to get for him to show that he's healthy, because this is a guy who gets hurt a lot, but when he's on the floor is immensely valuable, has a great contract, really I think he's got like 2 years left at like 12 million or something, just something very, very reasonable for his skill set. There are teams in the West that are very badly depleted at center. I mean, the Pelicans have. I was
literally going to say New Orleans.
I mean, the Pelicans have like the rookie, the French rookie. Like, I mean, they're like, really, really up against it. Like, that seems like a no brainer. and the Blazers know what they want. They want young players that are on rookie contracts and draft picks. So what are they going to be able to get? Ayton, I mean, I think you would trade Ayton right now if there was a deal to be made that made sense. Unfortunately, he's $35 million a year when the league is in a place where, well, one, I don't think he has that much value around the league. I think he's still kind of rebuilding that. And two, we're seeing really limited movement in the league right now with the new rules of the CBA, and teams are not eager to take on $30-35 million chunks, even for really good players. And I think you've seen when teams kind of run up to that threshold, the decisions they're making to stay under it. The Clippers letting Paul George go, I mean, that is a conscious decision to basically take yourself out of championship contention because of the economics of it. So I think trading some of these really high-priced players, not really high price relative to the max guys, but $30 million more would push a whole lot of teams over into that second apron with multiple years left is pretty hard to absorb. So I think that's why you're not seeing an appetite for Jeremy Grant, even Anthony Simons, who has a really again, I think also a really team-friendly deal. It's just not as team-friendly given the current structure with the second apron and the punitive pieces that go along with that. So DeAndre Ayton, twofold. He's really expensive, and teams aren't necessarily looking for a guy who is going to gobble up all those offensive possessions at that position. So I think I don't want to say stuck with, that's too harsh. I think you are going to have to make it work with DeAndre Ayton and Donovan Clingan for a while. Does that loosen up around the trade deadline next year? Is it next summer when Ayton has 1 year left? I don't know. We'll see. But I do think, and I think making it work with those two is great. It does get crowded with Robert Williams. I don't think the Blazers are afraid of that necessarily. You can let Donovan Clingan come along a little more slowly if you have two vets there, and you need to sort of showcase Robert Williams. Can you play Robert Williams at the 4 a little bit? Play DeAndre Ayton at the 4 a little bit. That's not ideal, but you also don't have to be very good. So it's okay if things don't look super pretty this year.
We haven't even talked about their fourth center, Dwop Reith, who's on Australia's national team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
That's how much
it's a great, yeah, absolutely. And he was one of the bright spots of last year's kind of miserable slog of a season. Mm-hmm. But to me, Donovan, if you didn't have an incumbent center right now, you would feel pretty darn good, I think, about starting. I don't. If there's no more moves, I don't know exactly what that first 5 for the Blazers looks like. If it's Simons, Henderson, Sharp, Grant, Ayton, something like that. I don't know if you want to start 3 guards, or if you're going to bring Scoot off the bench at the start of his second year. I mean, I think certainly in terms of pecking order and in terms of,
I think Denny's got to start too,
and Denny has to start. So you're probably starting. Man, the ant of it all is really.
The ant of it all is really it's really a lot, yeah.
I mean, trading Anthony Simons is such a no-brainer, but there also has to be a market, and there has to be. So that's why I still think there's going to be more to give this offseason, even though it feels like the league is pretty frozen right now. But the point I'm trying to make, or was trying to make, I think you'd feel pretty good with a young team starting Donovan Clingan and letting him figure it out. I don't think there's anything wrong with not having a starting role for him, but if you had that need, you'd feel pretty good about putting him out there and being the defensive anchor of your first unit now. But, I mean, if that's a year away, I don't think that's a problem either. He's 20 years old. He and those guards, ideally are going to play together for the next 10 years. So you have a little bit of a runway here.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about this. Did you have another thought on Clingan?
No, I was going to say, speaking of the guards.
Well, speaking of the guards, exactly. One thing that I find to be fascinating, and I want to preface by saying, I don't think it is the biggest issue in the world.
No.
But it is interesting, nonetheless.
Agreed.
Is that Scoot Henderson is not on the Summer League roster. He did not play Summer League. And you can look kind of around the league. You see some players who had better rookie seasons than him who are playing, some rookies who had worse rookie seasons than him who aren't playing. This is very much a team decision, team priorities. It should also be noted that Tumani Kamara is not playing Summer League after what was a very encouraging rookie year. But where do you come down on the question of whether you think Scoot Henderson should have played Summer League, even 1 or 2 games of Summer League?
Yeah. I just want to say, I walked into Celtics Heat at Summer League because I covered 2 guys who were on the Celtics. So I was like, oh, I'll show up, say hello.
Mm-hmm.
I walk in, and Jaime Jaquez is playing. I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
This is weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like, bizarre decision. But anyways, I guess that's where they're. I guess that's what Miami prioritizes. Good for them, I guess. Yeah, I personally, I wish Scoot would have played. From people I have talked to around the organization, this was absolutely an organization. What they say is that it was absolutely an organization decision and not a Scoot Henderson decision, which would align with the fact that he did say at exit meetings that he would like to play in Summer League. So, who knows? You're getting people within the organization saying that, so you always got to take that with a grain of salt. But it does really seem like it probably was them who said we're good here. I personally, yes, definitely wish he would have played. I think it would have been good for fans to see Scoot and Donovan together. Also, just give Donovan more of, like you said earlier, you have G League guards passing it into him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would like to get a little taste of what the future looks like. And I think that would have been a lot more exciting and enticing for Blazers fans as well. And by the way, Blazers fans need a little hope, okay? Need a little hope out here. Give us something, all right? And instead Scoot was on the sideline. Or not on the sideline, but sitting in the nice seats on the sideline with the coaching staff. So, yeah, I would have liked to have seen them at least play a few games together. I understand the skittishness of the organization after what happened the last 2 years with Shaedon and Scoot.
Mm-hmm.
However, they also let Shaedon play like really deep into Summer League last year.
Mm-hmm.
He played like 4 games or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it's a philosophy change or what. Because I remember after like game 2, I was like, oh yeah, they're definitely shutting Shaedon down. Nope. They let him keep going. So yeah, I would have personally very much liked to have seen Scoot play, at least for a few games. Give us a little tasty taste, and then I'm good. We can cut it off. We're not, I'm not sitting here looking for a Summer League championship, okay? I'm good. But I just would like to see I would like to see how that dynamic is going. But unfortunately we did not get that. So yeah, I'm definitely team Scoot playing, but I'm not the how do I phrase this? I am not team Scoot Henderson not playing in Summer League conspiracy theorist, which there are some of those out there.
Mm-hmm.
That are like, what does this mean?
People who have actual jobs in the National Basketball Association have expressed some of those conspiracy theories to me. Mm-hmm. That there is a thought that perhaps the Blazers have already sort of decided that Scoot is not going to be good enough, and that therefore, rather than put him out there in Summer League and let everybody else see that, and see him getting torched by Stephon Castle or whatever else, that they're still trying to preserve him as an asset because they know that this is not going to work out. That feels wildly premature to me.
Yeah,
but I find it to be interesting. I just will say, I think it is interesting that you have like talent evaluators in the NBA who are already speculating in that way. My view on this, I think you actually really hit something interesting on the head. And because I understand the I understand the organizational decision not to take the risk of putting him out there. Summer league basketball is not high quality basketball. They're real reps. I mean, you got refs and fans and, plays and all that and a clock. It's not just, scrimmage. But I do think that you have a lot of players who are not as good at the game. The sport, the quality of play is less. It's more erratic. I think there is a higher risk of injury, and you saw Scoot miss a month of his summer offseason training last year because of injury. You saw Shaedon Sharpe miss basically his entire rookie offseason because of an injury in the summer league.
Yep.
That's all valid. So I can't really argue with that. But man, I agree with you, Brenna, that Blazer fans are being asked to take a really patient view with this team.
Yep.
And that's okay. I mean, I think everything the Blazers are doing or have done, is the right thing. The way they're rebuilding is the right way to rebuild. It stinks. It's not fun to watch. It's, kind of hard to invest in. But here at the ground floor of the rebuild, they're doing the right stuff. That said, I want Blazer fans to have an opportunity to have something to hold on to and to be excited about. And maybe that's not tangible, and maybe that's not enough of a reason to risk, the potential for injury or whatever else. But also, if you're so concerned about injury, why would Donovan Clingan be playing? And so I think that some of that's a little bit of a smokescreen, but I do think that there has to be some acknowledgement that it would be a better viewing experience for your fans, and you have fans who have been given a lot of reasons to tune out your team and your rebuild and what you're doing. And having Scoot play summer league with Donovan Clingan would be a reason to give fans to tune in. And maybe the Blazers' calculus there is that doesn't really matter. Whatever happens in the summer will be immediately offset by what happens in the preseason and the regular season. And so this is sort of a prisoner of the moment, short-term issue. I just think that I really only see upside to Scoot playing, but I understand why the Blazers pulled back. And I also, as long as Scoot is getting work in, and from all accounts he's been doing individual stuff. He's having intense workouts in Vegas. He's not just there,
Yeah.
He's not just down there playing craps with Trent Bray. So, I mean, I think, if the most important thing is that he gets better this summer. That's what really matters. And so we'll find out, right? We'll find out in October if that happened. I just think that if he's as good as the Blazers have presented him as by taking him third overall and, making really serious organizational decisions to bring him in, if he's that guy, if he is the point guard of your future, let's not say a Damian Lillard caliber point guard, because that's not fair to anybody, but if he is the point guard of the future of this team, then he should be able to go out there and cook some of those dudes in summer league. And I don't know. I think that would make Blazer fans feel a whole hell of a lot better about where this thing is going if they went and watched Scoot get, 22 and 11 assists, and 4 of those are lobs to Clingan, and he looks bigger and better on the court. But on the other hand, one person I talked to, said very, very bluntly, he needs to learn to make a layup and not just get by guys who can't guard him anyway. And there is some truth to that. There is a technical side to basketball, to finishing at the rim, to the footwork that he struggled with as a rookie. Obviously the shooting is self-evident, but a lot of the details of the game that he still needs to work on and learn. And he's not necessarily going to improve those by playing, 35 minutes against, the backup point guard from IUPUI and the, whatever summer league team that person might be on. So I think I understand the wisdom. I think there is an emotional component to this that the Blazers are taking out of the equation, and maybe that's good business. I just don't know if it's great sports.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with you. You actually pinged something in my head when you were talking there that I want to bring up too.
Yeah, do it.
Something that was very noticeable around the team while I was down there was how many players were there from the squad who were not playing in summer league. Okay? Scoot
I mean, listen,
Henderson.
if Summer League was in Cheyenne, Wyoming, do you think that would have still been the case?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But they were like at practice and stuff too. They weren't just like, they weren't just like going out and, showing up for games, whatever. So yeah, I mean, the only players, Scoot there, DeAndre showed up at the end, Delano there, whatever. Chris, Chris playing, Denny was there for the first part, Shaden there, Tumani there, Robert Williams there. The only ones who didn't show up,
Let's hear it.
That makes sense.
Yeah, he's busy.
Yeah, he's busy. Matisse Thybulle, I think he wants some time away from the game of basketball right now.
Understood.
Yeah.
Matisse Thybulle, by the way, for those who are not aware, did not make Team Australia, is not going to the Olympics. Probably pretty devastated. Okay, continue. Who else?
Yes. So it makes sense why he did not make an appearance.
Yep.
Anthony Simons did not go, but also I want to just make mention that he has a kid who's like 6 months old. So I'm going to give him some grace right there. And Jeremy Grant is in a similar position. So you want to know what? I respect that.
I think. Listen, I'm gonna take the more
conspiratorial approach.
I'm just gonna read between the tea leaves. Read the tea leaves a little bit.
Yes.
Anthony Simons, does not make sense for this basketball team any longer.
I agree.
He's entering the prime of his career. He's in the prime of his career. He's been replaced, and there's not a clear spot. He's the Blazers' best player, but also their most expendable. So I don't know how this ends, but unless the Blazers are going to trade Shaden Sharp or Scoot Henderson and reimagine their timeline around Anthony Simons, which I don't see happening, this is going to end one way, which is with him being traded. So I don't know why he would come and make the investment of sitting at Summer League and acting like he's going to be playing with these guys for the next 10 years. And Jeremy Grant, same thing. Jeremy Grant is on the biggest contract of his career. It's going to be the biggest contract of his career, and he's going to play. If the Blazers are lucky, he's going to play the majority of it somewhere else. So, I think yes, there might be other factors as well.
Yeah.
But I think it certainly makes it easier for those guys to say no. I'm not gonna be dropping it.
Yeah, that's totally fine. I understand that, but I do respect that there was so many guys who were down there, who were working out, who were attentive at games. So yeah, that was kind of a cool other thing to see, just the amount of other guys who were there. But yeah, no, I feel you. I feel you on Ant and Jeremy. I'm sure that also went into some decision-making processes there, because you never know. You head down to Summer League. I mean, Damian didn't show up at Summer League last year. Gee, I wonder why.
Yep.
That one was a little bit more stark, where it was like, is he going to get traded while he's at Summer League? Whereas, Anthony and Jeremy, probably not going to happen in that situation. But I can also understand that, not wanting to risk it, go to Summer League and then get traded while you're there. That would not be that would be an interesting endeavor.
I mean, it happens for sure. I remember Summer League. What would that have been? 2014 must have been my first Summer League. Andrew Wiggins played a Summer League game or two, at least one, for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and then got pulled because the Cavs were, in the process of figuring out what to do because they got LeBron. And then all of a sudden, so then I think it was in August when they finally made the Kevin Love trade, but Andrew Wiggins was out there in Summer League for the Cavs. And then, later in the summer ended up getting traded to the Timberwolves. I think they shut him down because they realized they needed to not be jeopardizing his health and trade value in Summer League. But weird stuff happens in Summer League. I always root for chaos.
I will say, another observation from Summer League this year, much calmer than last year's Summer League.
Sure.
Just generally. And I mean, that's not a shocker because you don't have Victor Wembanyama. And I know next year we're going right back up to Victor Wembanyama levels, baby. Like, we're gonna be having the same situation, but way less celebrities this year, just way less intensity this year. Last year was so intense with everyone who was around, and this year it was much more laid back.
Yeah.
like throughout the entire time. Whereas last year it was like you turn to your right and there's Fat Joe walking the sideline, you know? Like you're like, what's happening? Like J. Cole's sitting in front of me on press row. I'm like, oh my God. You know, this year it was not like that. So it's definitely a different vibe at this year's Summer League. But I do know that next year's Summer League will be right back up to
Yep.
Fat Joe walking down the sideline.
Yep.
We'll be there again. So
by the way, I just don't get to do this very often. So if you do have any interest in the Scoot Henderson debate, I explored that in a column this week that was written in the form of a poem. And so it's in rhyme and verse. Dwight Janes, Rip City Radio, was kind enough to have me on and had me read the poem. I will not do that here. I will not give a second performance, but it was read on live radio here in Portland. But if you are interested in the Scoot Henderson dilemma, if you view it as one, you can go read an epic poem. Not long. Epic as in long. Just epic as in this is only going to happen once, which makes it epic. I explored that in poetry, which, by the way, I would just say to underscore the fact that I don't think this is the most critical decision, but I find it interesting. Is why it is explored in poem form. If it was really important, I probably would have spared the rhymes. Brenna, I want to talk. Speaking of couplets, I want to talk about Washington State and Oregon State in Vegas. The Pac-12, such as they were, no gambling. You'd say absolutely no gambling, no dice, no roulette, no blackjack, no poker.
I mean, I'm sure that transpired afterwards, but
no slots. Were there any slot receivers there? Nope, none of those either.
No, I think Wazoo had a slot receiver there.
So I want to know what you thought of that event.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things the Pac-12 did was they scheduled it so it buttressed right up against Big 12 Media Days in Vegas, with a hope that they would be able to attract some Big 12 national media that was already in Vegas for the conference that has, 27 teams or whatever it is, to come see the sad little pathetic Pac-12 of 2 teams. Did that work? I mean, was there a good turnout? Was there national interest in what the Pac-12 was doing at the Bellagio?
There was definitely a few national writers who did make an appearance. Not a ton. I know somebody who was a national writer who was there for Big 12, and he flew out that night.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of people did that as well, where they were like, yeah, I'm out. And that was probably set well before the Pac-12 even made a decision.
Right. Pac-12 announced their stuff pretty late. They did announce their Monte Carlo night fairly. It wasn't a Monte Carlo night, but that's what I'm going to go with because that's how I.
Because it sounds cooler, yeah. Okay.
Well, also it's like what they call it, like.
I think it was Pac-12 After Dark.
And they didn't. I don't think it actually was Pac-12 After Dark. I think it made sense that it would have been Pac-12 After Dark. I think they called it something else.
Let me see.
Pac-12 After Dark. It was Pac-12 Vegas Lights and Pac-12 Nights or something. After Hours.
After
After Hours
You're
with correct. The Pac-12.
Yeah.
So anyhow, okay. We've established that. But did you find it to be an effective event for spreading the message of the
spreading the gospel,
the spunky, scrapping Pac-2?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I enjoyed it. I liked it. They did a good job of making sure anybody who could be available was available, being open. I appreciate that. I saw some critiques that it wasn't live streamed.
Mm-hmm.
I wish they would have done that. I think that probably would have been a good idea for them. But they did not do that.
The revolution will not be televised.
Yes. In particular, I would say that I found what the passion of the former players who spoke there, the former Wazoo and Oregon State player, because it was only Steven Jackson who showed up for
I heard
State.
Hoosh had travel issues getting there. TJ Houshmandzadeh was supposed to be there.
Okay,
He
yeah,
had
I wasn't sure what
delays.
happened with him. TJ had travel issues, and then Ryan Leaf and Papa Throw were there. And
Thompson.
In particular, I guess if we're really narrowing it down to one person, woo baby, the passion of Papa Throw, aka Jack Thompson, was definitely the most striking thing, I would say, of the whole thing, and how very much he is still upset with all the schools who left the Pac-12, and how he is not. Yeah, he's going to be remembering that for the rest of his life. Let's put it that way. So, the former player segment was good. The number one thing I wanted to ask Teresa, the new commissioner, was, what's your goal for this conference past these 2 years? And her answer was basically like, it's more about what's best for the two schools than it is what's best for the conference. If it's best for the conference to keep continuing, then that's what we'll do. And if it's best for the conference for those two schools to go to some other league, then that is what we'll do. So, it should be very fascinating. It's going to be a very fascinating 2 years, to say the least.
I think that's a really important point that Teresa made to you, and I think it's worth just sort of letting breathe just a little bit more. Just to say, like, if Teresa Gould's interest was saving the Pac-12 as an entity and rebuilding the Pac-12, that's not necessarily in line with the best solution for Oregon State and Washington State. If there is a path to a Power 4 conference, the Big 12 seeming to be the most obvious, it is better for them to go and let the Pac-12 brand and identity, sadly, die, wither and die, or let if it does continue to exist, be rebuilt as a slightly stronger Mountain West. I don't see a viable path for the Pac-12 being rebuilt without Oregon State, Washington State as anchor schools. But I think that's an interesting point, and one I hadn't really fully given much thought to, but it is nice to hear, and I mean, not surprising, but nice that those two sides that could potentially be at odds are rowing in the same direction.
Yeah, I think that Teresa knows this is most likely a 2-year job for her.
Mm-hmm.
And that was definitely the vibe I got. That it was like, she knows that this is a 2-year job for her, and like, her main objective is not to keep. She's really like a commissioner for two schools, and that's the only thing that really matters. It's not so much being a commissioner for a conference; it's being a commissioner for two schools, which is a very highly unique situation.
Totally.
So it's they have an interesting dance they're going to have to dance the next 2 years, and it's going to be very fascinating to see how it plays out, to say the least. Because, I mean, it could be a job that stretches, that becomes, something more than 2 years, or it could be a situation where college football, just gets more chaotic, and all of a sudden they're off to, form a pod with Cal and Stanford in the ACC, because Florida State and Clemson left.
Yep.
So it's this is not done, but I also think right now all Oregon State and Wazoo can really do is sit back. So it's sit back and see what the heck happens. So it's going to be a fascinating few years, to say the least.
Yep. I mean, college athletics are changing seemingly by the day. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's tangled up in courts. There are things that have, started to be sorted out with, like, the House ruling and, revenue sharing for players. Obviously what happens to the ACC is going to have a ripple effect and a domino effect. This is it. I don't want to say Oregon State and Washington State are in a good position, but Oregon State and Washington State are in a better position than if they had panicked and said, oh, we need a conference. We're going to go be in the Mountain West. And
Yeah.
then you suddenly have a long-term commitment to a conference that maybe isn't where you want to be long-term. So this sort of, remaining flexible and nimble is smart for Oregon State and Washington State. I don't know that I really see I don't know. We'll have to see. I don't know if I really see a world where like the Big 12 comes calling,
I don't
unless
see that.
there is like a Big 12 ACC coast to coast merger to kind of go head to head with the Big 10 and SEC, which I mean still would be the third conference, but a super conference, and you need more West Coast presence. You'd have the Arizonas, Utah, Colorado, Stanford, Cal, Oregon State, Washington State. Maybe there's something like that, but I mean, again, that's getting into the entire landscape completely explodes. But that's what we're moving toward, because it just keeps getting crazier and crazier. Sort of like the real world, the sports world, at least in college athletics, just keeps getting more and more insane. Like it's one-upping itself every single day. So we'll see.
Yes. And that leads perfectly into the fact that we have Big Ten Media Days coming up.
Big Ten Media Days. Are you coming?
No, I'm not.
Gosh, I'm gonna have to go to St. Elmo's by myself. Have a shrimp cocktail to myself.
Let me cry a singular tear for you.
I've got my guy James Crepia there. I can we can enjoy some cocktail sauce. Is
Ryan
together.
going? Ryan Clark?
I think it'll be James and I this year, and we will be filing via the satellites, back across, beaming our stories back across the country to the pages of the Oregonian. So
I'm assuming they're bringing Dylan Gabriel.
They are bringing. Hold on, I was told this. I think this has been made public. I don't think I'm sharing any secrets here. I believe it's Dylan Gabriel, Jeffrey Bossa, and I am forgetting the third. They're taking 3 players.
Oh wow, 3.
Yeah, it's the Big Ten. It's the Big Ten. Everything's bigger.
Everything's bigger in the Big Ten.
Yeah, including the panels. So, Brenna, here's what I think is going to happen. I think we should check in next week. We'll talk Big Ten Media Day and all things Oregon then. Speaking of those teams that left the Pac-12 to shrivel up and die. That was for you, Jack Thompson. But obviously going to be a lot to unpack with Oregon as we get into their transition to the Big Ten. I'll have some stuff on that coming out in the coming days that we can unpack. Yep. I think we should leave it there. Talk Ducks next week. We're going to be back. No more vacation. Please. First of all, you're in, somewhere on the Pacific Rim, and then I was
in Portland.
Here in Portland, Oregon. So we're here now. We're back. Weekly episodes of the Oregonian Sports Podcast. Continue to rate, read, support, all of that. Follow Brenna on Twitter. I'm on that too. Not calling it the other thing.
Absolutely.
Send us any questions. Any questions on social media, let us know.
Yeah.
We're going to be ramping up our college football coverage here in the coming days and weeks. So it's getting real. Getting real.
Oregon Football Media Day, July 29th.
Hold on, I can look and see how many days it is until the first game, because Aaron Fentress is doing a countdown. 45 days.
45 days.
Until Oregon faces Idaho. Oregon State hosts Idaho State. 2 stalwart programs of the Big Sky Conference. Coming to the state of Oregon.
I'm mentally preparing myself for Oregon Football Media Day. For those who are listening, those who are listening who have never been, you have to go into that thing with a game plan. There is nothing more that you have to at least for my purposes. Maybe not for you, but for me, I have to. Because they have 4 players all talking at the same time.
Yeah.
10-minute windows.
Chaos.
It is insane. And this year, my photographer who I normally have is on vacation, which means I'm going to have to get a photographer from News. And whoever it is, bless your soul. Bless your soul. Yeah.
I think I'm going to schedule a doctor's appointment for that day, actually.
Yeah.
All right, Brenna, thank you so much. Welcome back inside the podcast studio. I'm excited to keep this going through the rest of the summer and into the fall. We'll be back.
Deuces.